Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, breadwinners, thread spinners, and all of those in between, you're now watching the TNET podcast with your favorite bipolar rock and roller, Mr. J. Curtis Strickland. Do me a favor, click on that subscribe button, click on the little bell for notifications, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. It will greatly help in the algorithm. Upcoming shows, we got Joe Mustin and Johnny Smurdell from Advent and Beloved. That's going to be next Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On the 21st of April, we got Scott Vogel from Terror, Buried Alive, Despair, Slugfest. That's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. And then the 28th, Tim McMahon of Mouthpiece and Handstide. That's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. And then we got a whole bunch of shows coming up after that, but you can subscribe to see all the upcoming shows and get notifications on them before they show up. All right. So my guest today is we finally made this happen. We had some
Yeah.
technical difficulties in the past, but that was on my end, so that's my fault. But yeah, he's been in the likes of such major hardcore groups like Madball, DMIZE, HAZEN Street, and he does the outstanding Smoking Word TV podcast over on YouTube, which I've caught a
Thank you.
few times, and
Thank you.
I definitely want to get into asking Mr. Hoya Roc, how are you today, sir?
Good, good. You hear me all right and everything?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good, good. Now everything is great. Finally, like we said, we've been talking about doing this for a minute, so I'm glad we were
Yeah.
able to do it. And this is actually probably one of my first podcasts since I left the band. I did Toby's podcast, and I think this one, and
Okay.
besides my
Cool.
own. So
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's great, man. I think it's cool to, see all these older like, really interesting seminal like hardcore dudes doing like shows and, talking about how it was like back in the day and like all these like really interesting intense like just, things that you wouldn't hear like, from anybody unless they'd played like in a band type situation. So
yeah, yeah, for
um
sure.
I think it's great what you're doing, man. And
Oh,
we
thank you.
both have a mutual appreciation for Sofia Vergara, which
That's my lady, of course.
I
Like, yeah,
mean,
I've been a fan before the whole Griselda, but I'm glad the world can enjoy her now also. But
dude, I didn't even recognize her, and like somebody was watching, and I was like, "Is that Sofia Vergara?" I was like,
look at, listen, look at. I'm a Sophia fanatic, but I'm also realistic. When I heard who she was gonna play, I said, listen, she's beautiful, she's great sense of humor, and she's very funny. But I said,
"Yeah,
no. After I was watching the show. I love the series. I got caught up, and I gotta say, big props to her on that. And besides being beautiful, she also talented. So,
yeah,
but
man,
no, but it was great. I love the whole series and that whole thing. She did good, man. I think she killed it.
yeah, man." I'm a big fan. I don't know. I thought she was still with old Dungeons and Dragons guy,
Yeah,
Joe.
she was with somebody, and then she left them, and then she kept calling me. But I'm trying to do the smoke AD thing. So
You're like, can't be bothered. Fuck.
yeah, not right now. Not
Sorry,
right now.
honey.
I'm busy. I'm busy. I got
Got some shit
singles and
going.
EPs to drop.
Oh shit, that's great. So yeah, man, one of the first questions I usually ask people that are, of a musical background is, how did you get into music? Did you have family members that played music? Did you, play in a high school band? What's like some of your earliest memories of like music, like in your household?
Well, yeah, I grew up in a house with full family, brother, sister. They passed away, so rest in peace to them. But a lot of music in my house. In one room, my sister was listening to freestyle music, Latin freestyle, like Lisa, club type music. And in my brother's room, he's listening to the Cro-Mags and to Venom. And then
Nice.
my father used to do a lot of singing, but for fun. But he was a great singer, old style bolero, Spanish music. And And so I picked it up. I was always, as a kid, I was into hip hop, very heavy into hip hop. And I always loved the metal sound, but I never liked the aesthetics as far as I love the skulls and although the drawings, but I was never into the whole long hair thing as a kid. I always used to think, and I never liked makeup. I always used to think like, why they doing the makeup? Like, like early Slayer, they would put like eyeliner on, and I was like, yo, they sound so evil. Like, why they had to do that? Then they kind of went away from it, and I was glad. And but I always loved the metal stuff, but I didn't like kind of the whole, I wasn't into the devil like that, but I loved the sound. And then when my brother was always into extreme music, hardcore, early hardcore, early black metal before this thousand types of different metals. But basically, the springboard for all metal. Everything was underground. It was black metal, speed metal, whatever they called it then. But so I had that in the background, and then I remember, I always loved Black Sabbath, as a kid. But again, being heavy into hip hop, I would hear songs like Rain and Blood, and be like, yo, that shit is hard. Something about it. I would hear We Gotta Know from the Cro-Mags, feel a certain type of way. I would hear Power from Agnostic Front and feel a certain type of way that was different than when I heard the other band. And I remember my brother getting a magazine. It used to be called The New Look. It was kind of like a cheap, low grade Playboy magazine back in the day. But they would have little articles on music, and they had an article on Agnostic Front, like a very little one. And my brother went to buy it, and I remember him being so excited. And I remember looking at the picture, and it was Roger and Vinny, maybe Kabul or somebody in the backstage of CB's. It was all graffiti. They were all sweaty, tatted, and they look like freaking scumbags. And I remember looking at them and being like, yo, those guys almost look like junkies. But something about it, I was like, yo, but it's kind of hard. And I love the sound that I was hearing. I said, so now I could put the picture and I go, wow, that makes sense. The sound and the look. I related to more than the metal and talking about the devil.
Yeah.
So I kind of leaned in, but I automatically, my brother was listening to hardcore. And I think that was the middle ground. It had that street where the hip hop attitude was, but it wasn't metal, but metal influenced. It had a style which was kind of a hybrid of what metal, punk, and street was. Boom. Then you got a lot the New York hardcore scene, early 90s. That's like basically the recipe, the gumbo for that era of hardcore, you know?
Yeah, definitely, man. And so, like, what's your earliest memory, I guess you could say, of like going to a hardcore show, like when you were just like holy shit, this is where I feel accepted. This is where,
Yeah.
where I feel at home. What's
Well,
your earliest
from
memory?
day one, like, we were already into it. I used to beg my brother to take me to see me, but I was real young. And he used to be like, nah, yeah, when you get older kind of thing. One day I had a friend who was a little bit older. He said, there's a show going on. My brother had went to the military, and my friend took me, and it was Rest in Pieces, which was one of my favorite bands, which Armine ended up being in Sick of It All later. And I believe my first two shows was that and Murphy's Law, basically one or the other. And I remember leaving there saying, "Oh, when's the next one?" Like and I probably didn't miss a matinee, and this is no exaggeration, for at least probably 3, 4 years. Like I didn't miss a Sunday. I even if we left early, we were there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, you kidding me? Like you would hang out with all your friends. Now you got music instead of having the boombox. You had your boys playing in the background. I was like, this is the best. This is the best. Like, you kidding me? You go in the city, you get your little pizza, you buy your 7 inch, you go see the show, and the matinees ended perfect time where you went home. You were home by 8 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock. If you live in the burbs, kind of, and boom, school the next day.
That would have been the life, man. I don't know. Yeah, that does sound pretty pretty
Yeah.
appealing. Uh Wow, 3 or 4 years. That's crazy. That's like church, for
Yeah,
some
and it
people. Yeah.
was. I definitely, again, I played in a band for 30 years. I played in a band longer than some brain surgeons been doing surgery. You know what I mean?
It's true.
And I take pride in that. You know what I mean? Because I take pride in the scene that something that I came into that was still pretty new, but still there. And look at how it thrived, and I'm a part of it, and everything that I have and accomplished because of it. So I love it.
Was bass your first instrument? And I actually remember seeing an interview with you on, I think it was one of your extras on, it was the like New York Hardcore EP that you guys did. And you
Yeah.
were talking about a one finger bass player. And I remember that very distinctly. And I was like, oh, that's a whole like, my buddy who is also a bass player was like, oh, yeah, that's like a whole like subgenre
Yeah,
of bass playing.
really, yeah. The bass player himself was James Jamerson. That's like my hero, and I think is the greatest bass player ever. He was a Motown bass player and played on like My Girl, these Marvin Gaye songs. But the beauty of him was he had learned how to play bass. They were poor. He came from the South. He said he had learned how to play bass from tying a string to a nail on the side of the wall and would just pluck it. And one day, he says him and his friends hanging out. They looked in an abandoned house, or there was a house, and there was like some old instruments, and there was a stand-up German bass, and he said he would sneak in and play it. Long story short, this guy, everybody, I tell you, Google James Jamerson and watch him. And he played with one finger. They called him the hook. So he just raked with one finger, and what he did with it was ridiculous. And but the reason I played bass was because of my other hero, my brother, my big brother, rest in peace. He was the one that I never wanted to be in a band. It was never my goal. But one day, hanging out with a bunch of our friends, we were listening to. There was a hardcore radio station called Crucial Chaos at the time, and it was a hardcore station. And I remember hearing some garbage, like some real, and it sounded like garbage can. And I got a big mouth, and I was saying, "Man, that shit sucks, man. We could start a band right now and kill that shit." And then my boy goes, "All right, then let's do it." Then I said, "All right, then let's go." I was, being cocky, kind of shit. And but since a kid, we always talked about being in a band, but we had no instruments, kind of. And then my boy goes, "Okay, well, what we're gonna call it?" And he said, "Let's call it Demise, but we spell it with a Z." And I remember I didn't even know what it meant at the time. I go, "What does that mean?" He said, "It means the end." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds hard." And then I said, I was already basically, I ended up playing bass because when me and my group of friends said, "Yo, let's start a band," they said, "Okay, what instrument are you going to play?" We didn't have instruments yet. My one Beto played at 25 to life, or playing now and then Demise again. He says, "Yo, I want to play guitar." I had a friend, he was a DJ. He goes, "Y'all be a DJ." All right, you're in the band. I had another friend who had a guitar. I guess he's the other guitar. I said, "I'll play bass." My brother always wanted to play bass, so it's got to be cool. So I guess I'll play bass. And 30 years later, here I go. Here I am.
Wow. That's crazy, man. So you started playing with Demise, and how well received were you guys? I guess if you would call that kind of your first, official like hardcore band. How were you guys received in your scene?
You know what it is? Our world was real small back then. So a lot of it was our friends from our neighborhood, but those it felt like the world was noticed us and shit. And I guess for the scene at the time, I guess we were like an upcoming band doing okay, but we only played a handful of shows. At the time was very crazy times for us. We were wildcats at the time. So definitely people were scared to book us. We were banned from places. So literally we probably played maybe 15 shows ever in the existence of the band. And yeah, and but I think people appreciated the band later more than at the time. So
Yeah. Found like that second win and like a cult following type thing.
yeah, for sure. And that's cool. I guess also when I started playing with Madball, I get people start digging into your old bands kind of thing, and so it's cool, man. And I'm glad they're back. They're doing their thing. So anybody who's out there, They're playing shows and they're back. I'm not with them, but I'm back. I'm with them in spirit.
Yeah, yeah, man. And so, yeah, that kind of, how did you end up getting hooked up with Madball post demise?
Well, we were all kind of hanging out at the time, and Demise actually played I think its last show happened to be coincidentally on the bill with Madball before I was in it, and Agnostic Front. They were starting to try to do their thing and whatever, but we were all hanging out. Long story short, Roger left to become a Harley Davidson mechanic. He said he went to Harley Davidson school, and they were starting to do a couple of shows. Demise had broke up coincidentally around the same time. So Maddie Henderson had hit me up and asked me, yo, you down to jump in and just play a couple shows, maybe a couple weekends? I was like, yeah, fuck it, why not? We're already all hanging out. Like, yeah, hell yeah, why not? And then boom.
Nice.
Yeah,
Um,
then I joined.
and then so you know, you guys like I mean I remember seeing you guys on like MTV and like, you know, it was like Roadrunner was like fast going after like a lot of the hardcore bands like in the mid probably like early mid 90s even on
Yeah.
to like the late
Yep.
90s and whatnot. And so you guys were like really, you know, kind of thrust in the spotlight of like a, you know, all these hardcore bands, and it was like, you know, saw you guys everywhere. What was that like, you know, to kind of experience that? And, you know, what were some of your favorite venues and places to play, you know, throughout your tenure in Madball?
Oh, uh, there's so many places to play. Like, so it's what was the question? The first part of it was again.
Well, I guess, you know, like when you know, you saw like your band would be on like
Oh,
MTV and like, you
gotcha.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
how,
You know, yeah. To be honest with you, we didn't know. At least I didn't really feel it at the time. Like we didn't know because it was going. I think by the time we did our third album, we looked and we were like, I remember kind of looking back and I remember people like, so waiting on the next album. And it felt like, oh, wait a minute. I guess we're a real band and I guess people like us. And I guess, oh, like it seemed like boom, boom, boom. But not till way later, I believe I started even appreciating like, fuck. Like I definitely wish I lived in the moment more. I can't speak for any of the other guys. I enjoyed it. I remember everything, but I think I could have enjoyed it more now. Like the mentality, like there was cool shit happening, but I think it happened. Not that it happened fast for us, but when it was happening, things move fast. And when you're young, your focus is on other things. You know what I mean? We're thinking about like how many bottles we're gonna get at night when we're like, yo, we just played fucking in front of 50,000 people, and they were going off. We were more concerned. We're like, yo, we're gonna go get whatever else, it's whatever it is that young guns do.
yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And you know, you guys, you know, took that internationally. Like, what was some of your favorite like countries to play? Like, I know a lot of people like Germany a lot. A lot of people told me places in Eastern Europe are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What was one of the most, I guess, unique tour experiences you had, whether it be in US or Europe or anywhere? What's one of the most like
I've
crazy
been,
stories?
yeah, I've been lucky, man. I got to do some really cool tours. Like again, Europe is a second home for us. From Berlin, anywhere in Europe, but we got to do like Dynamo '95, the biggest show I ever played to date. That was like by the time when we were on stage, it was like 80, 90,000 people, and there was one stage. You know what I mean? At the time, not like 10 stages like now, and we were literally us and Downset probably the only pure hardcore bands that year. You know, it was very limited at the time, but we got to do the whole Australia thing on the big what was called Soundwave. Where headlining was Metallica, and Ghost, and you had Slipknot and a mixed bill, and then I also got to do a UK tour, which I love the UK. Like England is like I really is another second home for me, and we got to do a UK tour not too long ago with Corn and Limp Bizkit. So that was a cool experience, and again, We got to do like again, being around, my stint with the band was 30 years. So I got to taste a little of every kind of, from the coolest small spots. We've played in castles, we've played in jails, we've played in basement bomb shelters in front of two people, in front of 90,000 people, like New Zealand, Asia, Indonesia, Scandinavia, you name it. Like again, I'm proud and lucky, and again, I got older, I appreciate it more. You know,
Yeah, dude, that I mean, that's crazy, man. That's been one of my biggest aspirations being in a band is to take it internationally. I've only done like regional and stuff, but like,
yeah,
yeah, I just hear all these great stories about, bands coming out of Europe and South America and,
for sure. South
Southeastern Asia and
America, oh,
stuff like
forget it,
that.
all that. Like, I mean, I grew up on the road, so it's like I grew up. I could say I grew up in Berlin because I got friends in Berlin that I would see 2 3 times a year, and I got friends in the States that never even been to my house. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I would see them a lot. We spent a lot of time out there. We were out there minimum 3 times a year. And, again, this is more than just going to shows. These people are your family. You meet them, they travel, you get sick, they bring you medicine, you're out there, you stay at their spot, day off, you get there early, they pick you up. It's like, again, I got family all over there. I'm blessed to say I got family that speaks, you name the language, I got a family member that speaks it.
And Germany too, that just the way that they, I guess, kind of treat, guests and just people that they're like kind of accommodating and whatnot. Like it's just above and beyond. I've known so many people that have went over to Germany and just said like they just were like
Yeah,
the
great.
red carpet treatment almost.
Absolutely. And a good thing about Europe too and Germany, not every country has it, but a lot have where there's music programs set up for the youth, where there's money put away, where this is how they pay for some of these shows to get us and their kids. They get the state or the city or the country, whatever has money literally for budgets, certain amount of things. So you do these shows in youth centers that it's paid for. It ain't like a racket where people are also getting paid on the side. Sure, people make their little money, but in general, it's like, no, the budget comes from a music budget sometimes, not all the time. And, it's real cool, because I think that was the way that got a lot of the bands over in the early days because again, there wasn't a lot of money and you had to bring them overseas. A lot of people staying in kind of squats or in what do you call like hostels and kind of that stuff. But but they made it happen. That they loved the music so much, it was like let's go. And definitely, you don't get treated better than you do like in Europe and like in some spots like that. They're like definitely, they learn like again. I think we both, meaning America and Europe, grew together in that way. Like how to accommodate each other. You
Yeah,
know.
man, definitely. And there was a stint where you played in a project, Hazen Street, with Toby from H2O and Freddie, and what was that like?
Yeah, it was cool. Basically, Chad. Shout out to my brother Chad Ball out there. Um, he basically was hanging out a lot with us at the time, Chad from Newfound Glory and everybody. And then he approached us, was like, and Toby, he was like, man, I'm hanging out with guys I grew up listening to their music. I would love to jam out with you guys. And basically, like, hell yeah, we jam with you, Chad. Like, hell yeah. He goes, yeah, I got a bunch of songs. Let's jam them kind of thing. And basically, we got in the studio. It started like a fun thing, and he wrote a bunch of songs. We jammed, we were having fun. Long story short, the demo got, passed around to the twins at the time, Good Charlotte. They were getting a label at the time. They said they heard it. They're like, yo, they found out who was in the band because they all were fans of all our bands. And they loved the sound of that. They were like, wait, I give them this much. They were like, yo, we're gonna be getting a label soon. We want to sign you guys. And you hear a lot of shit when you're coming up. Long story short, they got a label at the time and they signed us. And then boom. So then we were like something that came out of fun became kind of real. And then we hit the road for a little bit. So it was a great experience too, man.
Are you still doing anything with that in the future?
They always talked about it, but I think it's hard because everybody's doing their own thing. But I think everybody's open, but I think you need the stars to align a little bit,
Yeah, man. Of
you
course,
know?
of course. Yeah, and you do, your own podcast too, Smoking Word TV. How did that come to be? Was that like was that something that came about cuz I know a lot of them started during like COVID, or was this
Yeah.
something prior to COVID
I,
or
I I'm a yeah, I'm a before that baby. I'm
okay,
proud to say that. But no, all good to the. I'm glad that the 3 year stint that definitely relit of the fire. But I had the podcast early on, but this was before StreamYard, before all that stuff, and I used to do it with my sound man at the time in Europe because I was in Europe, so it was a bigger process then to get this recorded. So I had started it and I would do it on the road. Now, when I wasn't on the road, I would have to call Germany for my guy to edit. It was a pain in the ass.
sure.
At the time, more stuff was happening, so I kind of stopped. I always wanted it. People liked it and were getting more into podcasts and always asked for it. And I always wanted to do it and because I had fun doing it. And long story short, during the our 3 year vacation, I started seeing everybody started to do, pop up, and I started seeing the whole StreamYard and all these things popping up. And we said, wait a minute. Now it's like you get an app, and now it records it, your vote, it even separates it now. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a good way to keep us relevant, show people what we're doing still, and relaunch the podcast. And boom, here we are, so it relit the fire. And then I started with the podcast and I started my channel. Smoking Word Podcast is basically under Smoking Word TV, and under that is I got a cannabis travel show that is going to drop this year, called the Heavy Collective. That's where I put all my own videos from Casa de Rock Records, which is my label. And you also get all the podcasts that we drop. Anything that comes out of that we do, that I do, is on Smoking Word TV. So
Nice. And I know that you guys recently came together to form like a super group
don't
in
say it.
that
I know you're gonna say it, but don't say it. But that's cool. But go ahead. Yeah, I'll tell you.
in in Smoke AD, which has been dropping singles here recently. Dude, production on it is fire. The music is fire. Like,
Thank you, bro.
and pretty appropriate. From Fire Comes Smoke. So
Thank you, man.
yeah. What talk about that a little bit? How did that? I know. How did that come
Yeah.
to fruition?
Well, I basically had. I'm always cooking, so I had a lot of music and a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. You know. And again, I'm an active dude. Again, that's why I had to. I left the band and I had to be more active, and I had other stuff I wanted to get off. So I basically said, I don't like doing what everybody else does. So I said, what am I gonna do? Say, yo, I got a new band. Everybody, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, I'm not gonna go about it that way. Also, I'm not 18 years old where I can't hit the road. 12 months a year, sleep on couches like that to start something off at this point. So I had to get a little more creative on how I wanted to lay this out. Long story short, I had all this music. I said, how I'm going to present it. I said, man, my cannabis show. I hate you know how it is putting out podcasts. You get flagged for using people's musics, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm going to write the title track for my cannabis show, which was our first song called Smoke All Day. It was basically, we wrote the song as the title track for my show, and we'll lay out the new band that way, you know? So we put that together. But I said also, I have a lot of, what do you call it? Anything I do, I'll do it 1,000% or I don't do it. And if I do it, it's because I have a lot of what do you call it? Like I back it fully. Like, I have I just think that, oh, I got, it's on kind of thing. And I said, this shit I had, I said, I gotta sound big. And people that know me know, and even for the people that don't know me, I gotta let them know. And for everybody that does know me knows that under my name comes a certain style and a certain quality. And I take pride in that because I'm not like a geek with the nerd shit, but I'm really about production and flavor and doing how I do my music. And and I said right away, I'm doing this shit the way I think. I was the general. Now I get to plan my army. And I said the first thing I said, this shit got to sound like a monster. I said, number one, and I said, one, let's just say what Ezek, since we were kids, we know each other since we're 15 years old. And since we were kids, let's do a band. I played a Skarhead early on for a little bit. And he would always talk about a band, blah, blah, blah. But, we each had our thing going. The way the world works, this came up, and I only wanted to do it with close friends and people that wanted to grind hard on the music because I felt the music deserved it. And right away, he was on board, of course. And he's like, yeah, finally, finally, motherfucker, kind of thing. And he's great. I know he'd be the perfect voice and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, man, I got to get a killer, on guitar, and I said, I know a lot of great guitars. Again, I wanted to pick somebody close in with the vibe was for my show. And I said, man, I wonder what Sean's doing. I know because Sean has his new band, Umbra Vitae, I think how you say it. They just dropped an album, so everybody go get that. And he has Twitch and Tongue. Shout out to them. They drop stuff. So I know he had a lot of stuff going on. I said, but that's my old friend and smoking partner. And an old friend of Ezek's too. We all boys. I reached out to Sean, like, yo, what are you doing? I got these songs. You down to just jump on play. Before I could finish, Sean was like, hell yeah, I'm in there. Like I knew he would. That's one of my aces. Shout out to Sean. And then right away I said, okay. And with Ezek, what came Dimmy, Dimmy's an old friend. That's my boy, and I said, oh, perfect. So for I have this one track I want to get, but boom, Dimmy always wanted to jam and do stuff. I said, boom, we get Dimmy kind of thing, you know what I mean? Let's make this shit like that. And we're all smokers, not, coincidentally. And then, but then, yeah, when Sean was on board, I said, okay, man, this shit got to sound like a monster. You know what I mean? And that supergroup thing, I was busting your balls. I don't like that word. It's a compliment, thank you for people who loving our bands, but to me, that shit's a jinx. And it was not meant to be. Just coincidentally, we all in bands. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. But I call Zeus, and Zeus is an old friend. And besides, I'm a big fan of him, and he was a big fan of all our bands. And I consider him a good friend too. And we reached out. The minute I reached out, I was like, yo, what, Zeus, what I got to do to get you to record this single for me? Before I could finish, he goes, you got to come to Mass, and we'll figure out the rest later. Like on some real friend shit. Like it all was like that. Long story short, well, it ain't that short. I basically invested in myself. I took everything I could have that I could spare, and I said, let me get in there, to get this thing recorded, make it happen. And shout out to everybody. I can't say it enough to all those guys to help to jump along to do this shit. And boom, we were that. And shout out to Jay Reeves and Static Era Records. Everybody go there. Long story short, I got a record deal and a label deal, and I was able to get money to go back in and make it happen and go do this EP. And that's exactly what we did. So I hit up Sean again, and on these other songs I got Rig Ross. He used to play with us in Hatebreed. I had him as a guest just to jump on these songs because I thought his style would be cool with these tracks. And I hit up Sean. I said, yo, we got these songs. Let's go. It was go time. Sean. So it was on. We went in the studio. We recorded. We got to, like, hands down, the best recording experience. And I honestly could say not because it's the newest, but I think the hardest and the realest music I've ever written in my life. So if people like it or not, I can guarantee you that shit's my soul right there. So, you know, I can't help you. You don't like it. You know what I mean? That shit is real shit.
Dude, yeah, that shit was fucking hard as shit. Whenever you guys dropped that first single, I was like,
Thank
okay.
you.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling this. This is great shit.
Yeah.
Um, and you commit to a pretty heavy discipline. I see you. You're pretty physically active. You're constantly like doing stuff with the band. Uh, what is like an off day like for you? What are you doing when you're just like completely like chilling? You're just not doing anything,
Well,
decompressing. I mean,
le-
aside from aforementioned smoking, what else
yeah.
do you kind of like to do to kind of, just take it easy?
To be honest with you, I have no days off, but I have hours in the day that I have off. And it's good. That's life. I'm definitely lucky to do, I gotta be, I need to be, I'm going to start to be more active with the band because we'll talk about it. We're gonna start playing out and all that. But doing music, I think I have a really the best grasp of life I've ever had in my existence of what I'm here to do and how much time we have on this earth. And the one thing I know guarantee is that none of us know how much time we have on this earth. But I do know this: there's a lot of things I want and need, and they're for my sons. And while I'm alive, I can't risk, oh, leave it for tomorrow because I might not wake up tomorrow. I learned that the hard way. I lost basically my whole family within the last 3 years. I have a small family, but life is life. But I also learned from it. You know what I mean? I learned that time we don't get it back. Appreciate it, use it right, and for me to have my people, to have my family rest in peace. I know they want me and my sons to be good. So for my sons to be good, I got to be healthy and I got to be focused. Then they could rest in peace. And while they rest even from the afterlife, they're making miracles because I changed my life around because of them. Because of people that aren't here no more. They made me do that. So, you know, there could be beauty in loss. Again, it's just a matter of you know, people always say find a reason and what. Yeah, it's true. You could say there's a lot of sulking in people. Yeah, I got nobody. I got nobody. Nobody. Okay, but then you have people that don't like you. Then fucking do it to rock their shit. But for me, I got two sons. I don't need nothing else. The gym is stuck with me. I try to eat as clean as possible. Ain't nothing stopping me from my music. I've never been this focused in my life. In my life, because I also know I could go to sleep tonight and not be here tomorrow. So, and I won't rest in peace if I know I didn't die trying for my sons to get what they need. And that's just some security, which, they don't have yet. I'm lucky to have good health in a house still, but I don't got no 401k. I don't got no bank account like that, but it's all good. I work for mine. And this is why, again, I'm focused and I love what I do. So, you know, I'm psyched, on everything, again, life, during the whole vacation, I don't even like saying what it is, but that woke me up in the ways I needed to, losing people. And I think maybe for myself, I needed the harder way to wake up on stuff, and even, I'm a gorilla, I'm a caveman. So, and I also believe in God and God made me. So, it's his fault. And he had to hit me over the head with a hammer for shit to sink in. But whatever works, works. My sons are thriving. My sons are they're doing better than I ever did in school, physically and mentally. So I'm happy. To me, I'm like, so far so good, and I'm trying every day to do better. So, you know, I'm here. I'm trying to be here as long as possible, you know?
That's awesome, man. Like, yeah, like I said, I see you active on social media. Like, yeah, you stay
Yeah.
disciplined, you stay focused, man, and that's like, that's inspiring. Like I see a lot of people that are out there, doing it 2,000% better than I wish I was doing it. But then it's like, I have to understand that, like, you know envy is only going to keep you from moving forward in your goals, where it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you want to be good at something, but you might not be as good as the other guy or the other gal, like, right away. So you just got to
But that's
give
what the
yourself some.
problem. What you learn is stop, and it's hard to do. We all do it. But I learned this, and it's a practice that I'm doing, but I got way better at it. You got to stop comparing your situation with everybody else's. Because, no, you got to, you're only in competition with yourself, not with nobody else. And I did it. We all did it. We do this shit. And then that's a mechanism in our brain that we got to say no. And you got to find the reason or whatever it be. But that's all bullshit. Because the reason why I talk about it, I don't try to be no guru. That's not me. I'm not trying to be the positive. We got Toby and Blood Clot for all that gung ho shit. I love them. They're my brothers. But for me, I'll talk about it because mainly to be like, look it, I'm the average guy. I'm the guy. I was almost 400 pounds. Everybody knew me for many years like that. So I was like, and I had to see other people going through stuff to be like, yo, I could get through it. Like, it's in a fucked up way, but you have to see almost people go through it to know that you're not alone. And then when I saw people, I would hear situations of worse situations physically, even with the mentally and all that. And then I'm like, wow. And then I said, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. Then it's like, okay, if I could do that, now I'm just making excuses if I don't do that. And when my mother, long story short, well, again, I keep saying that, but it's long. At the same time, when the whole world shut down, my mother was passing away from cancer. So it almost coincidentally, I was meant to be there. I took care of her to the end. I wouldn't have it any other way. Me personally, I became her main person, which again, I was meant to be there. While I was doing that, I said, my mom's gone. She raised my oldest son. It was the only mother because I was married and my wife passed when he was a baby. And when she was passing, I said, wait a minute now. There's no more, now reality check, she's gonna pass, and now it's only my father, and myself. It's only me after that, like And I said, okay, what's my excuse now? I gotta get into fucking fight shape, life shape, I should say. You take that fight and change it life shape. And again, I just started watching what I eating, and I never looked back, and I'm not looking back. And I was way lighter. I'm 250 right now, but I'm healthy. Thank God. I feel good. I feel strong. I got my diet right. I was diabetic. I beat diabetes naturally. Everybody, you could do it. Anybody, don't get off those fucking pills. Unless you have to, but get off. All that shit's bullshit. I was the most undisciplined person. Again, it's very simple. If you look at the same diet you see a fighter and an Olympic athlete uses, the same diet they give you for diabetics. This is all a fucking scam. It's really what we should be eating. They make it like they're schooling you on something. No, what beats, what a UFC fighter eats, or any boxer or whatever. They're gonna eat lean protein. They're gonna eat a lot of greens. If it's broccoli, let's say chicken and broccoli, right? You're gonna do that, and a lot of water. Well, guess what? You know how you beat diabetes? Chicken, broccoli, a lot of water. Lean proteins, no fat, no breads, no that. You get in fight shape, and then you learn. Oh, this is what we should have been eating. It's not. This is that. This is diabetes diet. The fight. No, it's kind of what you have to eat to have a balanced diet. It's not easy, but it's very hard to keep it bulk, but ballpark, it's there. And I learned that. I'm like, wait a minute. My father was a diabetic, full blown dialysis. I cooked all his meals. You know what he ate? The meals that I was just eating, and I'm not a diabetic. He's just coincidental to the T. And chicken breast, don't use, light oil, light, no salt if possible. If you do everything natural, no processed foods, maybe little oats, fruits, mainly berries. I mean, simple shit. That I beat diabetes, everybody. It could be done. I beat it, and hasn't again hasn't gone back and nothing again. And I'm not the, I'm disciplined now, but it's something that you have to work on, and it's a daily. I don't wake up every morning and I'm like, yeah, I'm amped to put this 4 a.m. post up, but I do it because I'm there and I'm like, okay, I got to do it tomorrow. It keeps me accountable, and that's my witching hour. I do all my work there. My post, it gets me ready an hour before I train. While I'm waking up, I do all my business. I think of music, listen to my demos, boom. Then I go train, come back, then I take my son to school and get my day started.
Busy guy, man. You get the whole like regimen down, man. I'm impressed, man.
Yeah, a work in progress. I am.
Yeah, of course. We all are. When you say you go and train, you lift, do you box, do you
Well, I lift now. I was doing heavy back stuff back in the day. I did. I want to get back into it. I trained jujitsu on and off for a while, but I mainly go to the gym and I lift, and I do that, and I go on walks and shit like that, and but I lift. That I found out mentally that helped me a lot for stress, and just getting strong. I think any man, anybody, male or female, but especially men in your 40s, you should do some type of resistance training because our bodies are naturally getting weaker, especially backs and stuff. That we should do it just to be able to, when we're old men, we don't want to be the old men that fall and now your legs broken for 6 months or you blow your back out. And, we got to be able to hold up. So we got to strengthen these muscles and stuff like. So I ain't trying to be no bodybuilder. I couldn't get an ab if I bought them, but I just want, but I want to be strong, and my lungs are strong, my body's strong, my soul is strong, so I feel good.
it's good, man. That's that you can't ask for anything better than that, just
Yeah.
feeling good and just life ends up being good as a result of that. Uh if you didn't get into music, what do you think you would do like creatively had you not gotten into music?
I would probably be coming in through your window right now, taking your equipment if I wasn't doing music right now. And I'd hate to say, I would wish to say I was joking,
No,
but
I believe you.
but we were definitely a bunch of kids. I could have differently went a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? I was always a good kid that loved my adrenaline. If I tasted blood in a way, like, oh, that to this day you can't do that. It's that, but I was a good dude. But I just kind of the excitement of stuff, kind of what it was more. But definitely, I was a wild guy, and I was getting into some shit that when the band started, I remember it got to a point where we were like, yo, we were having people come, there was police involved looking for people and all types of shit. And then it was like, you know what, maybe we should try this music shit a little more seriously. It's a little bit more safer and a little more fun. And we started doing that. To be honest with you, before as a younger kid, I wanted to do special effects like movie effects because I thought like, oh, you could kind of be creative and I don't need the boss and it's cool. I just thought it would be something cool until I guess I found my shit with music.
Yeah.
Even with music, it was not so much playing the bass, but creating songs is where I love doing. Creating the music is
Yeah.
that's what I do. I'm a songwriter, hands down, like in that way.
That's interesting though that you were considering a career in visual effects because I come from a Hollywood background and
Oh, cool. Yeah.
so I always love to chop it up about movies.
Yeah.
And so I guess what are some movies that kind of inspired you growing up, or what are some ones that are like favorites of yours, especially like from a VFX background? Like, what do you think has good special
Oh,
effects
so
as far
many.
as
I
that?
was, my brother, rest in peace. So I grew up with all the horror movies from The Exorcist, The Omens, the trilogy of terrors, the old school ones, to also,
Saw that you were a Phantasm fan too.
yeah, oh, the big Phantasm fan. I even like the other ones; they were fun, but the originals. But the Evil Deads to the early, Walk It, the Night of the Living Dead, the to the some classic stuff like Humanoids of the Deep. I had an older brother, so I loved all that stuff. But I think where the effects are now and stuff are like so ridiculous. And I think early on, like I think during the Freddy Krueger era. Now you look at it, some of it looks really, but at that time I was kind of like, yo, this is like, I like what they're doing. Like the Dream Chaser stuff, it like that kind of more bugged out, a little bit psychedelic ish
Yeah.
kind of style. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it, and again, I like how they would do scenes when people would get shot up. I was fascinated, like when they shot up Sonny in The Godfather. That's one of my favorite movie of all times. So I loved how, and I would learn how they would put the set up the shots and all that and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I was into
Yeah.
that. Like again, I think it was more again the creative being something that I could create that people could see because I didn't need to
Sure.
be seen. To me, it was never about me, but I like showing you, just look what I could do. Not like look at me, but more like look at what I could do kind of thing.
Sure, yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because, that they call that like a squib, where they put it in your
A
put
squib,
it and
yeah.
then it like explodes, but they don't even do that anymore, man. And it's like, I don't know if you were ever like a Paul Verhoeven, like RoboCop and Total Recall, but like the squibs in that are like like sections of their bodies fly off,
So now this is funny you say this. So I love those movies and I love that. And I just look at I'm getting it's kind of bugging me out because I know again I was a special effects guy, but I never knew a lot of the terms. So I just learned that term yesterday. And you know why? I was watching the documentary, the newest one on JFK, where I don't know if you've seen it. Well, they're trying. It's a newest one and a conspiracy again, but this one and the way the footage looked, they're saying he had a squib and that Jackie O pulled it because they said you would have to pull it from the bottom, and you see it. You see him put something on. You see her bend over. It looks like what they're describing, but literally he talks about it and he shows the old school style of how they would do it. He asks about how they put the plate, the gunpowder over it, blah blah blah. But I literally learned that word yesterday, and because of that, so it's pretty coincidence, but interesting shit.
Well, I'm gonna have to watch this one because I've seen just about everything probably on the Kennedy assassination, but
This
it's
one was
fascinating.
interesting. Very, very. The footage is so clear, and I love the conspiracy stuff. It's fun. This one is interesting with the scripting. Check that out, and you got to let me know what you think. It's kind of interesting when you see it this way. So
Is it on what, Netflix?
I think yeah, one of those. Very, very
Okay,
bugged out when the guy narrating is talking about it. When he's saying it, and with the footage you see is very clear. I'm like, wow, it really does look like what he's describing. So
yeah.
you might maybe you can check it out. It's pretty interesting. So
I might do that. The one that I really kind of latched onto was Sam Giancarlo, the mob boss that ended up supposedly they said, him and what was it, the Teamsters, like, fixed it so that, Kennedy could get in, and then they were like, saying that he was talking all this crap on the Teamsters, and like then, decided to go against the military industrial complex, and then I guess they didn't like that too much, so it was like mob, CIA, like the whole lot of them colluding together. That one, to me, I was like, when they really kind of mapped it out and were like, oh, these guys would have been over here, they would have been over here. I was like,
you got to check this
that's
one
some
out
wild
because
shit.
I love all those old ones, but I've been over it. JFK. That's kind of we're into
Sure.
Martians and shit now. Watch this one. I was even watching the early part of it, kind of like half-assed. When he
Mm.
started talking that and they showed the footage, it really got to me. Like really, something to think about. Again, the mob wanting to get him and a way to get him fake his death, which people had talked about. And there's a lot of other things that line up. And the whole scripting, though, you got to check that out and later get back to me and on the
Yeah.
side and see. It's kind of interesting. Very, very bugged out. So yeah, hell yeah. So but I love movies,
I'll,
all that shit.
I'll check it out, man. Didn't they do a Griselda documentary in addition to the show?
The documentary is great, and it came out years ago by Billy
Oh,
Corbin,
okay.
a Florida director. It's called Cocaine Godmother. It's great. I think it's Cocaine Cowboys 2 or something, and it's about her whole reign. It's great. All those are really good.
That's awesome, man. So what's kind of in the is there plans for a tour with Smoke AD? Because I saw that you guys were like, where would you want
Yeah.
us to come? And I was like, Charlotte, come to
Yeah,
Charlotte,
yeah, yeah.
So
Again, man, we've been blessed, man. We've been getting a lot of offers for stuff, and the plan was to play out, but it's gonna happen sooner than we expected. We're planning a way for stuff to come out and kind of, and because we want to do it right and also lay it out right and make sure we sound like a machine and get the band together. Because also Sean he's touring and has businesses. So, but we're working on stuff. We're gonna be hitting the road for sure, one way or another, very very soon. Because the our new single drops on 420, and the EP, the whole thing goes live. Is streaming on 420, and then on May 7th, I believe the the vinyl comes out. Everybody, a lot of the vinyls are gone. Go to blackoutrecords.com. There's colored vinyl there, the green ones, the dope ones. Go to blackoutrecords.com. They still got some Cortex in Europe, casaderock.com, but blackoutrecords.com right now got some of the greens, and people have been asking me for the greens. And man, just well, right now we got the whole EP done. It's been done. We're dropping the new video. It'll be our third video. My plan is to drop a video for all the songs on it, and I'm working on an album already, and we're planning to hit the road. We're right now. I'm working on some things. I don't want to let it out yet. What city and what? But we're gonna be playing and doing. We're gonna be all over the place, and that's the plan to like hit the road with it and work it. And it's a real band. It ain't a project, and it's just it's connected to the web channel and everything. And man, I'm excited. A lot of new music, the EP, the artwork, everything. Everybody, make sure you get those pre-orders. Get them done. We're not doing anymore, and those came out really dope. Blackoutrecords.com, casaderockrecords.com, Cortex Record, and Static Era Records. Man, shout out to them. If you guys, again, you can even roll up today in Connecticut. Go roll up and go to Jay and go buy those
tell
records, man. You got
Jay
to
we said what's up. Yeah, buy some records from Static Era Records for sure.
absolutely. And who knows, we might do some U2 shit and play on the roof of Static Era. You never know.
That'd be cool. That would be so dope.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay. Well, one thing that I like to do is I have a merch company called Hell's Heart Merch Co. You can see down there, hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code 20 for 20% off your entire order. I'll throw a few samples up here. Here's our Black Flag mock. This one's Bullet, Steve McQueen. This one is Psycho 2. This one's a Scream, Glow in the Dark with
Cool.
Tatum.
Yeah, cool stuff.
And this one is a Scream, Glow in the Dark with Randy. So you like movies, you like hardcore, go on over there and pick up a shirt. That would be greatly appreciated. And Hoya, I'll be sure to post all your links to
De-
everything down here.
Definitely. Thank you, bro.
All the videos on
Yeah.
YouTube. I'll post all the links down there and everything, so
We'll
everybody can
spread the
check
word.
out Smoke AD and Smoking Word TV. And
That's
oh,
right.
look at those.
Go get
Do you
that
got
right
any?
now.
Do you got any black T-shirts with that design?
We're gonna do a trade. We're gonna be printing some stuff, new stuff, soon. So we're gonna do a little trade.
All right, I'm down. I'm into it.
Definitely.
But um, when's the next video going to be dropping?
I'm 420, so in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. It's a track that my bro Sean produced. He made a track. It's on some industrial shit. It's put it like this: it's the hardest, and it's gonna be the baddest breakup song you ever heard. All right. So, but I'm psyched about it. We have a lot of fun doing this one. Something a little different, but on some hard shit. And yeah, I'm psyched, man. We're gonna drop that video and the I think the whole EP will start streaming, and then we're gonna drop that vinyl, man. I'm psyched on the vinyl because the artwork came out sick, and to have it big, I'm actually gonna get it, mounted. I'm really psyched on the artwork. I made sure the artwork came off where even if you don't like us, you'll like the artwork.
Yeah, that artwork is dope, man. I'm digging everything you guys are doing so far.
Thank you,
So
brother.
well, yeah, I'll post all your links in the comments down there, and everybody, thank you for joining the stream. Um, like I said, go on over to hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Get you a shirt. That'd be greatly appreciated. You
Yeah.
can follow me on Instagram at the T and F podcast. You can see it there in the little caption there. Oh, excuse me. And yeah, like I said, click on the subscribe button, click on the little bell for notifications, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And we will be seeing you again next week, same time. Hoya, man, dude, I want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank
And
you for having me, bro.
hang out for a minute, and I'll get your info for a T-shirt.
Gotcha.
So, everybody, namaste, job bless, be good, everybody. Thanks.